the the association between unguided discovery and promise is actually a part of why so many important things have been discovered serendipitously. That's a bit counterintuitive. But let's look at an example of why. Okay, because this may help you understand better what I'm saying. Did we know anything about penicillin from the fact that it was discovered on accident? Um, well, actually, we do because it's an indication that it's likely a broad spectrum antibiotic that can kill many kinds of bacteria. It's not necessarily true, but it's the highest probability answer because they found it, because they accidentally created the conditions for it to be produced and it killed the strain of bacteria there. But how likely would it be to get a hit if the density space was if the uh, space of potential uses was really sparse? If it affected one species of bacteria, it would have been essentially impossible to find. And so I would have bet, just from the way penicillin was discovered, that it had to be useful. That's why our urge for certainty can actually be self-defeating, is because we want to know as much as we can about something. This is good for, before we bring a drug back to market, assessing side effects and stuff like that. But it's not actually, guided discovery is not actually how you find most of the more promising things, because it's an indication, if it is a use, even if there is a use for this. If I just designed it based on one very specific thesis about how one disease works, that's a bad thing in terms of repurposability. It doesn't mean it's going to be useful for anything else again. And for the same reasons, unguided discovery is actually more powerful. Discovering something on a broader hypothesis is actually more powerful. So one indication that queuing is promising is the person who found it, they just wanted to experiment with the idea that errors in translation RNA had a role in, not caused, multiple sclerosis. And for them to completely eliminate the symptoms of MS in these rats, well, it might be accidental in relation to the hypothesis, where that's not actually why it works. But um, the best bet is, of course, that this hypothesis was right, since it found something that worked. But the really interesting thing is, because it's a very broad hypothesis, this gives queuing likely applicability to pretty much anything involving translation RNA errors. And that's a lot better than if they had known some specific fact about MS and discovered it based on this. And for some reason, these pharmaceutical companies with all this money, they don't know that. They don't look for repurposability. They're not actually mapping out how dense the possibility space of something is. And this is actually, people would be going crazy if, you know, we did 2,000 or so studies on queuing before we found results, because this would be a thing we understood well that could have clinical level results on MS. That's the wrong way of looking at it, because the potential function, the promise function for this is thousands of times higher than if it took that long to find something useful. As long as we can take for granted that the result is real, with results that are we think might be fraud or are weak enough that they could be a statistical artifact that doesn't work. But given that a result is real, and this is why I'm saying over and over again, just because it's actually very obvious probabilistic logic, but it's kind of hard to wrap your head around at first. Given that a result is real, the less we know about something in order to discover that result, the broader the range of possible uses is. and the and the more promising it is. This is not going to be the only clinical level result human is going to get in something unless it's a complete fraud. But I have reasons to think that's not true because the way I found it was a method I knew would find incredibly promising stuff like this. It's a very deep evolutionary heuristic that is being used. So I just think I don't know what this is going to do with humans. But it has a lot of chances, and even if it doesn't deal with MS, it's going to do something else really important.